This meeting is being recorded. Member Elo? Is it
Present.
Member Watson? Member Dobbs?
Present.
Member Justice said she would not be able to attend, but did you happen to come on, Justice? Member Musao said she would not be able to attend, but might try to drop in remotely. Are you present, Melanie? Member Street
Present.
and Member Clark, you have a working mic?
Yeah, present. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning. Thanks for being here, Steve. All right, Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. The meeting's called to order. First thing we want to do is review and approve old minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
This is the August minutes.
Is. Yep.
Pass out the
For the October 16th.
meeting material.
From August 6th, 21st.
Yes. Okay.
I have a proposal on the minutes going forward.
Okay.
I was looking at item B from the August minutes, grievances and complaints. And I was reading all of the content, and it says that some clients are hypervigilant, distrustful, and in need of help. I'd like to propose an amendment to take out hypervigilant, distrustful, because I think that that's an unfair characterization. And I think it's really important that we focus on their need for help and to streamline the system. So I'm just proposing an amendment to the minutes.
Well,
Right here.
that was a public
Item B.
comment, actually.
So,
So that's on page 2, is that right?
yeah,
I'm not sure that we can take out a public comment.
I
Yeah.
think was it a public comment?
It was.
Yeah.
So,
Aha, okay, I thought that was one of ours. Never mind.
well,
It
it
is
would have been a
now.
month.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, no, I just thought that was one of our comments, and I think that, yeah, absolutely, the public can say whatever they want, and I'm grateful for the correction. Thank you.
So strike that.
Yeah, amen.
Okay.
I thought it was one of us, and I was like, dude, why? Yeah, isn't it awesome. Move on.
Is there any,
They joined after this meeting that you're looking at. So you're looking at the August.
Yes,
So,
so that's what it was. It was that Zay was not yet. I didn't. Hello, Zay. It's good to work with you, my friend.
likewise,
Ah.
non-member comment?
yeah, there were 2 sets of minutes. Yeah, so looks like we handed out the August minutes, which do need to be approved. We also have September minutes. So if
Oh,
you'd
because
like,
there was-
Chair, I'll bring those up.
Yes, please bring.
Share content.
Make a motion to approve the August minutes.
I second that.
Who was the first proposer?
Dobbs.
Dobbs. So, Og,
Seconded by David.
Dobbs, David.
Do we vote?
So minutes are approved then? Or should we take a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Abstentions.
Yep.
I abstain because I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay.
An abstention.
Okay, the ayes pass.
So Robert.
I'm-
Yeah, I'm looking for September.
Yeah, Robert's looking for the September minute.
Robert is looking for September.
Place.
So still, I don't say.
Just we got 5.
So. 4 ayes, no abstention.
Okay. 4 ayes,
One abstention.
1 abstention.
Motion passes.
Motion passes.
Minutes are approved.
Minutes are approved for August.
Okay, minutes approved,
There you go.
August and September.
I don't know if it is.
So.
Oh.
You need a pen. I'll sit next to you. Jimmy said.
Well, I don't have my pen off.
Now we're going to approve September.
Yeah, this mouse seems to be. Funky here. Let's try again. There we go. Draft minutes from September. That's probably the subcommittee minutes.
Should I go forward?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not finding the September minutes, sorry.
And so we do.
Let's try opening these, it's on chance, but these are probably the subcommittee minutes. Yeah.
Well, there's a staff report here.
Well, Robert, could you turn this one on for me? Oh, it's on.
So we'll carry the September minutes to the next meeting? Or,
Boy, sorry, I guess. Maybe we can dig them out here somehow.
We have the.
So they're in, Marion found them, but they need to be transmitted over. I don't know if you can place them into the website. Okay, that'd be ideal. So, I've noted that the August minutes are approved and the September minutes should be up for viewing here in a little bit, but if you want, we could work on the next topic, old business, while we get that
Okay.
going.
Just, we're gonna table it on your.
okay, we're going to table vote on the approval of the September minutes. We'll approve them at the next meeting.
So, moving on.
Moving on to old business. Item A, meals and nutrition. She's not.
Yeah, I attempted to put those minutes in yesterday belatedly, and I shared them. Angie, did you get those minutes? So you can be my witness if I sent you an email with the minutes.
Don't worry
Did you
about.
send it directly to me? Because the only one I got was the one that everybody was on.
Robert, Britt just tabled the vote till next
right.
month and we moved on to old business.
All right.
So go ahead, Britt.
Okay, we're meals and nutrition, which was brought by Chair Almanza, who is not here. I'll just read it. Following up on this topic tabled from last month due to the absence of quorum, the policy subcommittee is asking that a request to be made to HSH to survey sites as to whether they offer lunch or a third meal per day per client. Do we have any public comment on this item?
A motion that we approve.
Well, it looks like we have a
Wait.
public comment in a chat
Yeah,
from Aaron.
I apologize.
yeah.
Go right on.
I don't see.
Where's the chat, Robert? Can we vote the public chat?
He needs to be unmuted. Give us 1 second, Aaron.
What's the math?
No, Huey, no.
It's a mess.
Okay, Aaron wants to be unmuted.
Huey?
No, we maybe, Aaron may have some comments for,
Allison? No.
for something there. Let's see. One moment, Aaron. Sorry if I unmute Aaron for
Yes.
comments.
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Huey? No.
Aaron, go ahead.
My name is Aaron, and I'm staying here at the Bayview Vehicle Triage Center, a shelter for people living in their RVs. All right. We're out here by the old Candlestick Park. Okay. About the food. No, we don't get lunch. Secondly, the Meals on Wheels that we are getting is horrible. And myself have refused it for several months now that it's been implemented on us. I understand we have to wait 3 months of this before we can ask for a change or get a poll done or a survey so we can express our displeasure. And we have one person here on the site who's been doing a documentary every day what they're offering up. And it's I encourage you guys to eat it then if you think it's okay and we should be eating this sort of stuff, because I don't think any of you could last through one dish of this. Thirdly, they're billing this site double the capacity. They claim 81 people are being served here when there's only 35. So, and this is in their what do you call contract, the grantee agreement that I have, and I printed out. I got it on PDF, so I know what I'm talking about. That's the data. Lastly, on them, Meals on Wheels, they do not include the kitchen or the eating utensils as required by the grantee agreement. This is from day one on it, and I've been complaining about this quite a bit, getting nowhere. I believe it's the state of corruption that we're dealing with in the city of San Francisco. But there's my response. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for comment.
He's at Bayview, the RV site. I'd like to ask a question and address those comments. Aaron, if you're still listening, I really appreciate, thank you for calling. I lived in the shelter system as well, and I was reading the grantee requirements last night. In fact, I agree with you. We were not getting the silverware, the dinnerware. We were also not given, as is required, we were not given a process to complain or to communicate with the grantee. And I think that probably we could ask Patrick Buckaloo, who's here, about capacity and about, how many heads are there. But I think that you bring up a really important question about, dollars spent on the ground. But most importantly for us, I think it's standard of care. And we're very grateful that you're speaking up right now. And yeah, I definitely would like to propose that we, as a committee, come up with a way to communicate with grantees and with HSH to bring them together under their specific contract requirements.
All right. Thank you. Who is this speaking?
I'm
Your name,
CJ
ma'am?
Ross. I'm C2, CJ Ross.
CJ Ross. Well, great. Yeah,
God
thank
bless
you
you.
very much. You understand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of change that we can make. We just have to be patient and do it together. So I'm really grateful for your voice. Thank you.
Any comment from the commissioners?
This is Zay, seat 5. Something that comes to mind, which may be unpopular, but I'm just, as I think of the same way I think of my own budget, I think when we're spending other people's money, I think the same way. Recognizing like the fiscal environment that we're about to run into in terms of budgets, in terms of the survey, something that would also be, rather than sheer distribution numbers, I think it would seem important that we also know what percentage of participants are also signed up at other programs at the same time.
Yes.
So I used to run a food pantry. We had a patron list. Do people receive SNAP benefits? Are they participants at Glide or other food programs? Because it is really important to me. I very much so agree that everyone should have access to 3 meals a day. But that program, to the point that was just raised about overspending funds, is not designed to allow you to have access to basically use the system in a way that it's not intended to be used. So I do believe that eventually it's important to have a survey of what programs or what crossover there is between programs of people who are, as we roll out additional meals, so that again, the funding to what was just shared, that the funding is actually used in the way that it is designed.
I think that definitely falls under the heading, the survey question is like, should we recommend as a committee that we ask HSH to poll each site? Maybe we could ask policy to put together like specific like a template for HSH, and if they like what we put forth, it'll be easier for them to say, yeah, we'll send this to the sites and we can get the data faster. Because then we can go, okay, please send this, poll your sites, right? Do you offer a 3rd meal per day? And how many of your clients, right, use other programs? So we can get more data on the same survey. Because we were going to make a recommendation, I think, to HSH or to the full committee, right?
Would you?
Yes.
Yes, we are. However, it also goes, I think, along with the letter that we also proposed
Yeah.
for HSH,
Oh, the memo.
that we've been waiting to get approved by the full board. So I think that'll be like probably I really want to get the letter pushed through.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hesitate on the letter, just speaking for the sub policy committee
Yeah,
right
where
now.
do we have?
It's actually in your folder.
Okay.
And so, no problem. So we've been trying to move forward on that in a minute. So I don't want to halt that and add on an additional question at this time. However, I believe that I will bring that back to the subcommittee, policy committee, and we will add it for next month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
I
that's
think that we
okay
can
with
do
you
both.
guys.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can do public comment.
Patrick Buckaloo,
I think your mic is not on.
Not on.
Can the folks at home hear me? Oh, there we go. Patrick Buckaloo, I'm the Navigation Center's program manager. I also happen to have the Meals on Wheels contract. So I just thought not to directly respond, but just to give you some additional information for your discussion. So in the Meals on Wheels contract, I can see I can see if you didn't like create the contract, that it might be difficult to understand. I do want to just make sure everybody's aware that Meals on Wheels only gets reimbursed for the meals that they deliver. They're contracted to bring up to like a max number of meals. But if, like, let's say folks aren't eating them, they're all, really the utilization is lower than what's contracted, they only get reimbursed for the number of meals delivered. And that delivery is renewed every week. Like the number, like the program directors, order a certain number based on utilization. So I do just want to be clear, Meals on Wheels isn't getting that full amount that's in the contract. It's based on the actual meals delivered. The other thing, just on the feedback piece, there's a few ways for clients to give feedback about the meals, which is important. Everybody knows food's extremely personal, right? And if you are in the shelters and you're eating reheated frozen meals every day, you're going to have opinions about that. So there's a couple ways I would just want to make sure that folks understand how they can give feedback. One is directly through the site, and the sites have a direct, you can talk to site leadership. They're not in control over the meals, obviously, but they can give that feedback directly to Meals on Wheels. The other piece of it is that Meals on Wheels does quarterly surveys. So there's 4 written surveys that they do every year. a survey every quarter. I will be happy to provide this group with those written surveys so you can see what questions get asked. And then additionally, we just renewed the contract last fiscal year. And one of the new requirements is that they have to have biannually, so twice a year, they need to have a focus group. And so my understanding is that first round of focus groups just happened. I don't know for sure if it happened at every site. I know it happened at a bunch of sites at least. But the first round of focus groups happen where Meals on Wheels actually comes in, provides meals, has clients taste test those meals, and then have guests, give feedback. So those are a couple ways. The other thing is, of course, people can complain to the Shelter Monitoring Committee. We have a registered dietitian from DPH who helps with those complaints when they come through either the department or through the Shelter Monitoring Committee. So I just want to make sure the public's aware of those ways that they can give feedback on the meals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. I would also like to see the numbers, not just the survey. So I know you said you would like to give us the survey, but I would like to see once the surveys complete some of those numbers for that survey, if that's.
Like the survey results?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, I can get those.
Thank you.
Hi,
I think.
Hi, Green.
Azin Zia Ibrahimi. Puppies. Correct me if I'm wrong. The way that I heard Aaron present the scenario was that the program, not HSH, the program was requiring people to take X amount. To me, if somebody's not going to eat their meals, that's a false deliverable. That's Meals on Wheels auditing a contract on their own without any accountability. And I think that was more the point of what, and I don't want to speak for Aaron, but all these reviews and taste tests are all great and fine and dandy, but at the end of the day, the numbers matter, and if the numbers are fraudulent, that's an issue.
Thank you for your
Thank
public
you.
comment.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question of Patrick Buckaloo, please? Hi. So I actually was looking at the agreement that was already voted on back a few months ago, but I was looking at the agreement with Meals on Wheels last night. And so I was kind of thinking along the same lines as Aaron. And when I read, it's specifically item G, oh no, it's J. So it's going to be
I'm so sorry, CJ. Are you looking at the contract or the Appendix A?
the proposed grant agreement. So like this wouldn't be, I think this is this is one of our supplementary materials for today.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was on our website. Per the discussion that we're going to have. And so I'm sorry, we don't have one printed out.
Oh, all good. Okay.
But I can show you mine if you want. But item J is feedback, complaint, and follow-up policies. Grantees shall provide means for the served population to provide input into the program, including the planning, design, and level of satisfaction with services. Feedback methods shall include a complaint process, including a written complaint policy informing the served population on how to report complaints and request repairs services. So that's the first thing. It just says shall. And it says that it's the grantee's responsibility to provide that. So that's the first thing. It would be a complaint process and a written policy. The second one would be the quarterly survey, which I've seen those many quarters. And so that's totally happening and that's awesome. And then the focus group, I think is going to be really exciting. I look forward to the first focus group. I'm hoping we could live stream it or something amazing. I don't know how to do it, but
I think a lot of them have already happened.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I was just really looking forward to hearing about a complaint process that's designed by the grantee and that is put in the hands of the served population. Like, I mean, surveys would be great, but if they were always available, that would be great, you know, like direct communication from the shelter clients to the grantees, to the providers is so important, because from my perspective on the ground, you know, you've got people begging for help with the meals and like not understanding what's going on with meals. You know, there will be droughts in what's available, and we get like stonewalled by the providers because they have a lot on their plate. They're like not trying to deal with like Meals on Wheels, like, and our dissatisfaction. Like, to them, it's often like, okay, well, we don't control that. Sorry. Or like, sorry, if you don't like it, that's the way it is. And that's something that we hear regularly. And so I think it would be really great if the grantee could get like a little bit of a nudge in the right direction as far as like, hey, let's get that written policy, and we could just have it on the floor in the NAP centers and the shelters, right? And then that maybe like a complaint form that goes straight to them would be cool.
Yeah, definitely, CJ. That's an excellent catch. Let me go back and read the contract in the Appendix A again.
Oh, yeah.
And look at which section is it again?
J.
J.
It's just
And-
feedback, complaints.
Yeah, and I'll
procedures,
take
yeah.
that and I'll talk to the provider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate
God
it.
bless you, my man.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Robert, hate to butt in. Tracy is in as a phone attendee. It's 415261 is the preference if you want to make her a panelist.
Okay, let me try to find her.
So,
Okay.
So
Tracy,
So
I
any,
think I
any more
made you a
public
panelist.
comment? Or any comments?
Those on the phone can press star to raise their hand to make public comment, or they.
Say hello again. I would just say that having no, not you. This is not your turn. Having run Huey. Having run a food program and a food delivery program, especially, and understanding like the logistics of what that involves, like I can't imagine. We want to continue to see improvements, but I can't imagine like the difficulty of running something at the scale that Meals on Wheels operates. At that scale, I mean, tens of thousands of meals beyond. It's extraordinarily complex, and so we want to continue to see improvements. But I also have like a great appreciation for how hard it is to do that work at that scale. I ran a food pantry where we were serving like 40 people, and then we ran a delivery service where we were delivering like 3,000 meals every week. I cannot comprehend like how difficult that is. So I'm appreciating their work while we want to continue to see improvements.
Okay.
And I don't see
Aaron
any
has,
hands
I
raised.
think Aaron has a comment.
Any make?
Okay, I don't see a hand raised, but I'm going to unmute you, Aaron.
Okay, thank you. It's my first time here, so I'm not familiar on how to raise hand. I apologize. Number one, we need more providers, not one monolith provider. Again, I encourage you
Yes,
to
amen.
eat the food we're talking about here and be direct in it, like I have to and everybody else out here. It is horrible. We want options, especially dietary options that deal with people's religious beliefs and so forth. These are not provided. The food is horrible. We want a vote. Ask us, do you like this stuff or not? And if it's or not, we get other food. They're charging $8 a meal. So they're handing out 2 meals to everybody. So it's $16 times 2. Let me tell you something. You could do a lot better for $16 per meal at McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, or someplace else. And we would like the taste of that food. This food is horrible. Absolutely. But democratic process like we have here, ask the served population, do you like this stuff or not? Let me just say one last thing. The food we had before Meals on Wheels got this monolithic contract, which is horrible. You want variety, all right? Diversity of tastes. Well, from one provider, you're never going to achieve that. Our last provider of food was fantastic in comparison to this, what we call slop out here. We hate this food. All right, give us a say in this. But again, when you're talking $40 or $50 million contract, they're going to do everything in their power to continue this status quo. And they don't care that we might not be achieving our best potential physically when we have to eat this terrible food or we're opting out of it. Okay. So, lastly, if we have SNAP benefits, are you saying that we shouldn't have access to food, whether it's this provider or somebody else? Thank you.
No, that's not what we're saying
Okay.
at all.
Okay. So,
Did we want to poll or ask HSH about this or wait until we refine our question a little bit? I guess
Yeah.
that would be what members need to
yeah,
decide at this point.
yes, we want to ask if we shall request HSA survey or otherwise provide said information.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, we need to bring this back to the
Yeah.
committee. Yeah.
So
Were we gonna, were we planning on voting though about asking HSH to poll the sites about the third meal?
Yes.
Okay, so then Patrick, I think, has a follow-up.
Okay.
Oh, no, sorry. I thought you were calling me.
No.
No.
You're off the hook this time, Patrick.
Okay, we're gonna vote.
Okay, so I'm gonna actually propose that we still ask HSH to survey. We're gonna come back with additional questions because I think it's additional things that individuals want to add to a survey
Yes.
for HSS pertaining to the meals. However, like I said, we've been waiting, the subcommittee has been waiting for a while. So I would like, once again, to propose that we request that HSS does the survey on the third meal as provided.
I second.
I second that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
All opposed? Seeing no opposing, it's recommended that we will go forward with this.
All right, I'll note that.
Could I ask a question about action items since we just put one on the board? Do we have dates for action items or just a to-do list? Do we have like projected goals like for certain items on the action list?
No, I mean, this one is easy. And
Okay,
that's easy enough to just do. Some action items take a lot of time and effort
Okay.
and have to be fitted in and
okay. I was just curious. No pressure. I love you.
So moving forward, we're going to go to item B, which is shelter staff training. This is brought by Chair Monza, who is not here. I'll just read it here. Over the last few subcommittee meetings, the 2004 shelter training manual has been reviewed. Members agreed to ask the full committee to send a memo to HSH to ask them to consider requiring that the information in chapter 6 through 8 be conveyed to new staff earlier. The chapter 8 material should be gone over in the first 3 months after onboarding. Perhaps the first 3 chapters could be merged into a more concise presentation. Also, more material on the Americans with Disabilities Act is needed. And finally, harm reduction merits its own chapter. Okay,
so I'm displaying the draft letter.
is there any public comment?
sorry to interrupt again. Tracy would like to know what she needs to do on her phone to speak.
Star 3.
Well, I will try unmuting her. I thought I made her a panelist. Let's see. I'm gonna
She
unmute.
is a
you, Tracy.
panelist. Oh, there's
There you go.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I knew what to press if I need to speak.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure how your situation you would mute and unmute other than press the mute and unmute button maybe if there is one, but
Okay,
I've unmuted you for now, so you're set.
thank you. Thank you.
We do have a comment here in the room.
Yeah.
If you'd like to come forward.
Where is he?
Same comment I make every time about ADA. I truly believe that everything starts at the ground level. And again, 2017 Supreme Court ruled that gender dysphoria is protected under ADA. Nobody's established what those protections are at all. And this is where I think those protections are created. Problem being that if you look at any of the contracts with any of the trans-led CBOs, there is no programmatic expectation. And in creating those programs in real time, we need to actually be engaging with clients or participants to figure out what protections are for gender dysphoria. It's, you know, at that point, you're offering up a program that could be a bill. You know what I mean? And somebody else can take credit for it. That's cool. As long as, you know, from community all the way up, we've pushed the culture to actually represent and protect a marginalized community. That's that.
Thank you for that comment. More public comment?
Yeah, members feel free to comment, but let me look and see if there are other, I see Aaron, your hand up. You want to comment on this training manual, Aaron? I've unmuted you.
Yeah. Again, we go back to the Urban Alchemy grant agreement. We're supposed to have an ADA officer on each shift. Did not ever happen to this day. You let him get away with it at HSH. Why this is important with respect to this previous person's comment is because that ADA officer is there to ensure access and issues of, you know, compatibility with everybody. Okay, it doesn't exist at the Bayview VTC, never has. And this is why, I don't know if this is news to you in the panel, but I'll break it here. There is a major HUD investigation / lawsuit pending against the city of San Francisco by the US government, okay, because of failures to deal with the ADA matter legally and lawfully, okay? So I don't know why we're not having a discussion about that, but I appreciate the previous commenter's position. But let me tell you something, they're not even handling the people that are in wheelchairs or disabled at this site at all, let alone get into like an even more marginalized peripheral disability situation. So don't feel alone is what I mean to say. They're just flipping us the bird, so to speak, and not giving us what is required under the contract. And there is no oversight, so they're getting away with it. Thank you.
Thank you for comment. Okay.
Don't see any other hands raised. Just refresh.
Okay.
Make sure, and I might have been interrupted before. If you're on a phone, you press *3 to raise your hand or to lower your hand. And on the computer, you can do other things. Always try right-clicking if nothing else works.
Any comment from community members?
I just think it's really important that we remember our roles as upholders of the standard of care. And there are many references to standard of care in a lot of the grantee agreements. And I think that with respect to oversight, I mean, that's what we are. We're an advisory body to an oversight commission. And so I personally feel it's really important for us to develop, if there isn't one in place already, a very clear, a clear pathway to compliance. I think that the language in all the agreements is very clear. And I think that it's pretty basic. If a grantee is not providing what they say they will, there needs to be a very clear methodology for us to get that straightened out, and to have that be known and to have them be accountable.
Okay.
We approved item B.
So we are going to have proposed action to approve the memo for the chair signature. All in favor?
A
Or wait,
motion that we approve
or-
it.
okay, wait, yeah, sorry.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Say
Aye.
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 all opposed? Okay, it's unanimous, seeing no opposed.
You might have to sign it, though.
I will sign the letter. Okay. Going on to new business reports. First on the agenda, subcommittee report. Subcommittee members? You want me to read it? Okay. Okay, besides the availability of the third meal at shelters, the subcommittee has discussed harm reduction and laundry. Also, there is an anecdotal evidence that shelter guests are sometimes sickened by the food they are served by the shelter. Employees who cook, prepare, and serve food need to be trained at least by the food handler or at least by a food handler card holder. Lastly, it is recommended that the committee ask for volunteers from among shelter guests and managers to make presentations. Perhaps the committee can offer guidance on how to select speakers. Any public comment?
Yeah, on the food handler's card. And also anybody who's security having a guard card. Both those being requirements, but just like being bilingual, all these things should be reflected in pay. And a lot of times they're not.
Nope.
And that's kind of, it de-incentivizes folks to go out and get a guard card or a food handler's card. Everybody who works in the shelter system wants to see a future and be upwardly mobile and, grow within their career. So incentivizing as opposed to de-incentivizing, de-incentivizing. I don't know how to say that one, but yeah. Pay raise.
Thank you for your comment.
Aaron,
There's a hand up.
hand up, yeah. So Aaron, on this subcommittee report, I'm assuming you raised your hand again. Let me unmute you. There we go.
Can you read me it back? Because I was listening to the previous commenter who knows what they're talking about. What was the thing again? Because I do have a comment on it.
Okay. Besides the availability of a third meal at shelters, the subcommittee has discussed harm reduction and laundry. Also, there is an anecdotal evidence that shelter guests are sometimes sickened by the food they are served by their shelter.
Yeah. Okay. I've got a grievance right now in with the laundry provider about losing a lot of my laundry or whatever. It wasn't returned to me. And the lead up to this was every time they were dropping the laundry off twice a week, right? They were asking us to make sure that's all yours in there. Okay. Because people are saying that they're losing laundry. So it happened to me that I got returned like half of the laundry I sent out. And I was like, whoa, it happened to me now. We have a situation where they can't keep anything straight. They send my laundry to somebody else, their laundry to me. There's a lot of unknowns where they miss the where it's supposed to go, the lot number in our case. So we each one where we're parked. And so we have this unknown pile. And so we have to go through that if we think we're missing something. So it's really disjointed. Let me tell you something. That laundry provider is getting paid handsomely. They charge $50 a blanket to wash and fold, okay, and dry. Okay, $50. That's what it says on the receipt that I get, for example. Secondly, with respect to food making people sick, here's what I have to say to that. Nobody's dog or cat will eat the food. They take one sniff and they walk away. All right. Cats will eat pretty much anything. They won't eat that stuff from Meals on Wheels. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment.
another comment in the chat.
Yeah, there's a comment from Toribio from Five Keys.
Where is it in the chat? You say?
Yes. He was wondering if shelter guests could come to the meetings. And of course they can.
Everyone.
We welcome them.
Yes, everybody.
We really encourage it.
Yeah, we
Yes.
encourage it.
I have a comment about the laundry. Is it our turn yet?
It's always your turn.
It's always your turn, Angie.
I just wonder if there's somehow we can recommend, I can't remember what shelter it was, but there is a shelter that do mesh bags where the client laundry never leaves their mesh bag. It's a bag that can go right into the washer. If there's somehow that we can figure out a way that be the standard for all shelters, so this being lost laundry, pick through laundry, like having to go through a pile of unknowns is ridiculous. And if there's somehow we can figure out a way to get all the shelters to implement the mesh bags where each guest is allowed 2 mesh bags per week, that of course should not include blankets and sheets. The clients shouldn't have to put that as their weekly allotment. That should be on the facility, sheets and blankets. But it's amazing. Like I said, I can't remember what shelter it was, but
I think it was Bayview, Tapo.
Baldwin has that as well, the mesh bags.
yeah, I bet we don't get any complaints about laundry loss from that location. And it would reduce the stress on clients and their only belongings.
Right.
Wondering each week, am I going to get my socks back? You know what I mean? That's really stressful for people that don't have a whole lot of stuff, and they need to know that their stuff is secure when at the mercy of others.
Agreed.
I think in the standard of care, the language needs to be maybe clarified. Maybe we could get a definition or two. I believe under laundry, it says shelter guests should have access to laundry facilities. And I believe that's different than laundry services. And I think it would make a huge difference if people, like, for example, at the sanctuary, you can do your own laundry. You have access to laundry facilities. But just like Aaron's talking about, I've had my laundry damaged, all my clothes just come back ruined. I've had, loss of clothing as well. But if I could, as in the standard of care, have access to laundry facilities, then that probably would eliminate a huge amount of the problem for clients. But I know it's a challenge. Like for example, at Barcadero now, they have their own washing machines, but the clients don't use them. They're not allowed to use them. And I think that's the same as the Baldwin. So, I mean, I think there's room for improvement there. But definitely I'd like to clarify the language, and get that nailed down for sure.
I agree on that, but not every site is going to have the ability to have a washer and dryer. Like,
Right.
for example, where this gentleman, Aaron, at the trailer, I don't think that that location would have the ability to set up a washer and dryer where the guests have access to it. So we need to have more than one solution to helping make sure that our guest items are safe and cared for in just the way that we want our own clothes cared for.
Yeah, I think we're speaking to all items under new business at this point. It's like A, B, and C.
I know.
Want to say that?
Yeah.
However, I do want to say that in the subcommittee meeting, we did try and discuss about, I believe, Angie, we started talking about there actually being in the contracts at one point, that the shelter had to contract with one of the local laundromats in order to make sure that this is happening. I see you. I don't remember how we can get that info, but I know that the subcommittee was going to bring that up because that's important. If there is still a contract that says that there needs to be a partnership where they can take it to a local laundromat, and as well as, again, we're trying to make sure that everyone is able to get transportation or the ability to have someone escort them over there in case they have disabilities. So I I understand everyone's frustration for sure. I also find myself get frustrated because we have to go through a whole bunch of bureaucracy and steps and procedures. So sometimes we might not feel like we're making any steps, but we are. I just want you guys to know. That's why I'm always so like, let's push the policy, because we know that if it's policy, we can get it done.
Yes.
So that's all I want to say.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Member Alo, I will say that when I first moved to San Francisco and lived at one of the largest shelters in our current portfolio for a year, laundry was much worse than what it is now. You had to be on a queue. If you weren't one of the first people back, you weren't able to wash clothes. Whether you had a job or not, it didn't matter. Laundry was a massive barrier. And I think particularly after what we implemented during the pandemic, we learned a lot about laundry delivery service, full concierge style. And I think we need to also understand what were the types of methodologies that worked and what didn't work, because we ramped up a whole bunch of programs really fast that we didn't have prior. And so I do want to acknowledge that. And I also want to say laundry is especially close to my heart because in San Francisco, we also have the underbelly problem that we've been closing a lot of our laundromats in the city. And actually, we just changed the planning code to make it more difficult to convert a laundromat into a different kind of business, because that's a problem that we have in the city. So one of my thought bubbles is, though, I want to the point that was just raised by Member Street, which is really important. I do want to think about what is the way that, again, this funding, this monies for these contracts can support local businesses that are laundromat owners that are finding it difficult to operate, because I also want to avoid large commercial transportation companies, which have the scale and the logistics to run those programs, getting all of the contracts, and then the little mom and pop shops get cut out because they don't have the capital equipment, the vans, the et cetera, the massive machines. You need 50-pound washers. They don't have that equipment. And so then by default, to the point that was raised earlier about the contracts and how you design who's going to get the contracts based on the program, mom and pop shops will not get those contracts because those folks don't have access to that equipment. So in thinking about how agile and how flexible it is, depending on where sites in the portfolio are listed, as was said earlier, we don't need a one-stop model. It doesn't need to be universal, but I would love to be able to support local laundromat owners who've had a particularly difficult time since foot traffic has changed so much because of the sort of consumer behavior changes affected by the pandemic.
Thank you.
A really relevant point. I was on a committee that did a study of the laundromats closing, and it's there are almost none, especially in this neighborhood.
Okay. I think there's a hand up again.
Yeah, so
We got a couple
Aaron
comments.
had spoken already on this topic. Just to make sure people know, you can speak once per discussion item, but then there's also general public comment at the end of up to 3 minutes. So just be aware of that. Thanks, Aaron.
Okay. Okay.
Did you see that comment in the chat?
So seeing no more
There was a
comment,
comment on chat.
It's
Yeah.
It's in the chat.
that's what I was trying to say.
Previous long thing from Dawn, there's many chats I don't make section 2.
There was a hand up.
Okay. Just, can you keep scrolling, Robert? Thank
Well, I
you.
think Don's making a point about the difficulty it is with actually allowing clients to wash due to certain things that they put in the washing machines at certain sites, what is saturated with, things of that nature. And so I think we understand that as well. I mean, we know that we have to find a solution where clients are one, making sure that all their stuff is getting back to them in a timely manner, but also where it's not causing additional work for staff. I completely get that.
Yes.
I've seen a comment in the chat about urine and feces. Of course, we don't want feces in the washing machines, but urine. I mean, as somebody that's had 6 kids and sometimes tries to hold it a little long, a little squirt here, a little squirt there is urine. It's gonna wash out, and we should not penalize or shame over something like,
Incontinence.
urine. I mean, do you remember when we wash out our kids' diapers, they were nothing but urine. Of course, if there's somebody that's throwing their feces in the washer, then we need to look at the bigger picture.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
nothing a little bleach won't help.
A lot.
I
Okay.
just put myself on Front Street.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andy.
Yes, Angie.
We love you
No,
very
we
much.
need to keep it real. That's very helpful. So,
So,
Chair, do we want to maybe think about how to select, we can, if we go to speakers, they'll usually, feel like they need to try to cooperate and speak, but, if be best if the committee members could give us some guidance, say
Yeah.
who they think we should approach first, or what we should tell speakers in order to keep them from taking over the conversation in ways that won't be productive. I don't know. So that was what this item was.
yeah, post action. I feel like A, B, and C are all we've just had a discussion about all three of them.
Right.
And I think the ask is pretty similar. Can we condense them? Or,
Yeah, well, we can certainly, A and B are asking for speakers.
yes,
C is the survey about laundry. Which,
So I think if we wanted to give some directive, so right now I believe that we're asking for either one, individuals living in or involved with shelters, as well as providers that would like to volunteer to make a presentation in front of us maybe next month. Once again, I'm not a person that would like to dictate how anyone's freedom of speech is handled. So I don't want to be like, this is what you can and cannot say for individuals living in the shelters. However, I would say that we would like to review both provider and shelter presentations, and shelter involved individual presentations before we have them speak. That's my directive on it. I don't know if anyone has any comments or wants to add to that, but
Yes.
that's what I have to say.
Zay Alo, not to branch off that topic in particular, but one of the A, B, and C that's in that topic burrito.
Yeah.
We just wrapped up.
Right.
B in particular, something that with my operations hat on is rarely discussed, but something I know from the budgets and what we're experiencing in Oakland and in Berkeley, and as we're about to run into those tailwinds, and it's about to be a hard wall in
Right.
San Francisco. Is my concern that operators, in the conversation with harm reduction, that needs to also be balanced with concerns about liability. Because for operators that are now engaged in certain practices for populations that are engaging in substance use, that also now changes their general liability environment. And if you're already operating in Oakland, the wider departments are described as operating in a quote skeleton budget end quote environment. And so if providers are already finding it difficult in terms of adequate pay, equity, et cetera, now the challenge will become as someone that's written those policies, that try to negotiate for price and beg for dear life about the amount that general liability for a shelter that we are running costs. Adding in those kind of components, while that is important, I really do feel we need to update that. At the same time, in terms of those total costs, we should not forget and lose sight that when you renew those general liability policies, you've now increased likely the cost of that general liability. Now that your insurer knows that you're engaging in harm reduction practices, it's more expensive to insure you. And so the policy aspect, I think we should also think about the wider environment of what it means to introduce those standards of care, because as we just said, we don't want to introduce standards of care that we can't implement on the ground. Implementing it on the ground means you should just guarantee you're going to hear back. We've heard back from our general liability that now our insurance is going up $10,000 a year because we've implemented these practices.
Yes,
So
you have-
just something that is on my mind. Living in the operations space of a shelter, running these programs, and thinking about all these budgetary pressures. We definitely need harm reduction, absolutely, but I hear very little. Generally, when I'm hearing discussions about harm reduction from the provider standpoint, what the cost is, because then what happens is a bigger proportion of the budget is for administrative purposes. And now less and less of your actual budget is for the programs, and as was said earlier by a speaker, to actually get participants to the outcomes that the program is designed for. So I just want to note that, having lived that reality, and that's a grave concern that I have, that not only the insurance or the cost, but that partly with security and other stuff, that because not as much in San Francisco at all, but that we unknowingly transfer greater liability to providers that then get stuck with the bill to manage that liability.
I'm going to comment on this. I run a nonprofit that provides harm reduction supplies. I think that it seems to me, if I understand what you're saying that liability insurance will go up if you're providing harm reduction. So I know that the shelters don't provide supplies, but providing condoms and Narcan to me doesn't seem like a reason why a place would want to raise your insurance. You're not providing supplies that help people use. You're providing, the ability to reverse an overdose and to protect people from infectious diseases. So that seems kind of like crazy. And very unfortunate that's where we've come after so many years of all the work we've done in harm reduction to get to that point where it's going to be almost penalized for doing the right thing.
Yeah.
That is crazy to me.
That's ridiculous to me.
I
That's
can
what-
understand, where, some people can have feelings about giving people supplies, but that's much different than providing a tool to reverse an overdose or to stop infectious diseases, which I know for a fact that no shelter does provide, harm reduction supplies that could be considered enabling.
Right.
That's crazy to me.
And I support it. Again, I fully support it. Just there might be like an unintended budgetary impact. And if there is, still fully support it 110%. But
Sounds like we need to do some education with some politicians and people like that, because, the true nature of harm reduction is being, I've seen it now. So many city-funded organizations are losing their funding over this, and it's sad. We went through the AIDS epidemic. We've gone, Hep C's down. We have overdose reversals, and it's once again, harm reduction is being attacked and being made political, and it makes no sense to me. We give out 800 doses of Narcan a week, and to imagine that we would be penalized for that, just really, the morgue would be overflowing with people. And I know many of you, directors in the navigation centers and the shelters know this. We were front line through COVID. We've seen so much death, and to imagine being penalized for having something like that just makes my blood boil. And that's even something that we need to really find a way to address.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That'd be like saying paying more for a meal that's diabetic, conscious or sodium free. That's harm reduction. How
Yeah.
can we categorize harm reduction? Harm reduction is harm reduction, and there should not be any penalties for anything that reduces harm to a human being.
Well, it's a liberal agenda. So, you start picking it off. So start with harm reduction. We don't know what's going to be next.
Right?
Right.
Yes. Sorry.
That's why everybody needs to get
Very
out and
emotional
vote.
about this.
I mean it. Get out and vote, or more liberals will be taken from us.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to say my agency does not get city funding, so we can give out all we want. Anyways, moving on. So I proposed action on this. We're going to condense it down, or for the 3 items, or Have any?
So I will propose that we're open to looking for individuals who
Yes.
want to present. Please contact Robert or Marion. Yay. I also propose that once again, talking about laundry and doing what we can over here in the policy committee, that we request that HSH surveys, yes, surveys again, otherwise provide information on what the shelters are currently providing, because we do not know. Or we would love to hear comments from anybody on what the shelters are currently providing, but I do propose those things. Thank you.
Second on that?
Yes. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
All opposed?
No, I'm not opposed. I'm an aye
Oh.
in favor.
Just a little
Slow
late.
on the draw there.
Okay, so seeing that we, all in favor, it passes.
Mm-hmm.
Move forward with that.
Now we're ready for Patrick.
Now we'll, item D, Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing report, right? With Patrick?
Oh, yeah, bring Patrick up, put him on the
Welcome,
spot.
Come on, Patrick.
I love
Bring your
him.
Hi. Patrick Buckaloo. I'm the he, him pronouns. I'm the Navigation Center's program manager for the department. And I have the vacancy report, and it looks a lot like previous months. You can see the shelter system's very impacted. I pulled this data yesterday, by the way, so I know some of these numbers are a little bit different. For example, I know Taman Booton's full this morning. But there are little sways here and there, but you could see there's a lot of 99, 100, 95% occupancy in here. So yeah. Any particular questions? CJ.
Why are they so full? What's going on? Is it the sweeps? So what?
I mean, in general, the goal for the department is that we want the whole shelter system to be 95%. That's really,
Right.
in general, the goal. You know, some sites are not going to be at that for a variety of reasons. And you can see, depending on the size of the site, like they might just have 2 exits and then that drops them, below. It just sort of depends. We want the sites to be full. I think that a lot of the HSOC resolutions, et cetera, everything that we've been reading about in the papers, I do think that has led to an increase in referrals into the shelter system. And so, yeah, we are seeing things pretty full.
I have one
Yeah.
more question. Regarding like side programs, like a ride home. I'm not sure what is the program called? Where
Homeward Bound.
Homeward Bound.
Oh,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And then there's another one. I think at Adante, there's a certain block of rooms that are set aside for these programs. And I was looking at data when the Adante was first blocked for people who wanted to enter rehab, I think it was, or go into drug treatment
Yes.
specifically.
I forget
Something like that. And I wish I knew.
I
But-
but my colleagues. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So like, I'm assuming that affects the data, and I'm wondering about, like, I noticed that month, Adante's, turnover was super high, but that's because there were people turning over quickly that were in those temporary, rooms. So like every 3 days you had people, leaving. And so I'm just wondering, which of these sites have, like side programs or like blocks?
So those aren't counted in this data. We don't report back to this committee on that. I'm happy to. I could tell you, but like because that data, just like you pointed out, CJ, like it just changes so much.
Yeah.
So for example, we have beds that are set aside for if people get COVID, right? We don't want people in congregate settings getting it, getting COVID and then giving everyone else COVID. So we do 24-hour INQ to some of the programs. Those beds aren't counted in here. Those are the same programs we use for those programs, like for folks that are going to be going into treatment, et cetera, CJ, are not included in this. If you'd like, I can start including that.
Yeah.
It's going to be, I just don't know how useful it is because like you pointed out, it's going to go up and
Right.
down. And it's just like one day it might be like a ton of people and the next day it's none. And
I just didn't know if that was included in this data or what.
it's not. Yeah. So none of that's included. These are just like the set set all the time beds that don't change.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And I do have an asterisk on the Adante. I have temporarily lowered the capacity just to avoid confusion. They had that fire a couple of months ago, and we have several rooms that are out. That capacity will change once we get the fire damage taken care of, and it will go back up.
I have one more question. So for the standard, the administrative code, we're supposed to have one dedicated walk-in for men and women, walk-in shelter, that always has a spot for somebody if they need it. I'm curious to know, I'm newly the homeless outreach coordinator for my church, and I was approached by a man who needed shelter. And my old lady data in my mind was like, okay, MSC South, or, I knew next door was referral only. But MSC is now referral only. And I had to call someone wiser than me. And she said that Dolores Street was the only walk-in for men and women. I know a women's place has the walk-in and the permanent shelter, or the established shelter for women.
Correct. So a women's place shelter is not walk-in. They have a drop-in center that's separate.
Okay.
That's like a drop-in center.
And so that's like the only one for women.
Solely for women, that's my understanding. That's the only drop-in.
Okay.
I'm not at all an expert on the drop-in centers, but correct. That is my understanding.
Okay.
And you are also correct that, to my knowledge, except for Interfaith, right? Interfaith Winter Shelter, which is only through the rainy months, basically, which, if anybody caught this morning, is apparently upon us. And so Interfaith will open, I believe, in November. I'll get back to this group on specifics on Interfaith. That one is drop-in. Dolores is also the other drop-in, as you pointed out, CJ, along with Jazzy's Place. And so I am not aware of any other drop-in centers. I'm also not aware of what you alluded to at the beginning. You said that there was a rule. Could you say that again?
I can't cite it, so I'm nervous to bring it up again, but it is in the administrative code. At the beginning, I think it's at the beginning of the standard of care, actually. And it says that the city, so there are certain responsibilities that the city has, that the providers have, and that guests and oversight bodies have. So the cities has a few responsibilities, and one of which is maintaining a 24-hour drop-in center for men and women, a drop-in shelter, which has certain services, I can't quote it exactly, but it is in the standard of care. It's at the very beginning. And so I've been very curious about that, because as an unsheltered woman, I really have struggled at night, just going, where am I going to go tonight? What am I going to do? And I've been now approached by my brothers and sisters on the street who have the same question. And I really didn't have a place to send them. It's really hard to get to Dolores Street and line up at a certain time. What if people come into the city at night? So I guess I'm sort of feeling out where that fits in with what we do, and how, I'm just sort of feeling it out, seeing what's out there.
Sure.
Yeah.
So how about we do this? I'm going to ask about what's in the administrative code and see if I can dig on that a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this group a comprehensive list of all the drop-in centers that are 24/7.
Well, thank you. That's
I think
awesome.
Mission Neighborhood Resource Center is open at night, isn't it, Patrick?
I don't want to say definitively because it's just not my area of expertise. I'll look, and I will get back to the group, and then maybe that would be some stuff we could also post for the public,
Thank you.
or at least a link to where all that information is on the HSH website.
Thank
I
you.
believe that 3111 Jennings Street also operates a drop-in. They're not beds, but they are chairs. So 3111 Jennings Street. It's not 24 hours a day, but I've sent a few folks there, especially on the weekends when no other drop-ins, where it's difficult to navigate drop-ins.
Okay.
Health Right 360 has a 25-bed, 24-hour drop-in on Howard between 6th and 7th. I
Yes.
can't remember the name.
Yes.
I'll tell you.
Yes.
First come, first served.
Yeah.
I think it's
But I believe
for men only.
but I think one of the criteria is that you have to have been actively using to go.
Oh, that's a
that-
sobering center. That's
Yeah.
soberized.
It's
Okay, well, I think I'd like to just propose that, that our committee, and I'm happy to work with Robert and Marion on this, come up with
Yeah.
as much data as we can, to supplement whatever Patrick comes up with. And then maybe at our next meeting, we could receive that data.
Can you hear me?
Angie?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, I think, so I'm in the regulations and I think that what you're referring to, CJ, is section 20.403 of the city requirements. There are
Yes.
two sections, A and B.
yes, ma'am.
A is to ensure 24-hour client access to shelters in order to make shelter reservations, provide an on-site shelter reservation for current shelters, and ensure that shelters will just make reservations for on-site beds if requested by a shelter client. Then the other one is to provide at least one 24-hour emergency drop-in
That's the one.
that provides shelter reservations, mental health services, medical services, and
Mhm.
transportation to avail off-site services and
Correct.
programs.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Angie. That is
You're
exactly
welcome.
what I was citing.
There's the owl.
Thank you. What number
I
is
knew
that?
I'd heard. I
You're
knew
the
I'd
best.
heard that before too, and I was just like,
Awesome.
wait. I
Right?
know
And it's
what
very,
she's
very
talking
important because
about.
that's the front gate for our city. And we obviously have, a very large population of people who have needs. So I'm just really excited to dial in on that, city responsibility and make sure that the gates are open for the rest of the system to be used effectively.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, Angie, could you say that section one more time? I'm sorry.
Sure. The section is 20.403 of city requirements,
Thank you.
and that's in the San Francisco administration.
Administrative. Thank you so much. Ange.
You're welcome.
Great.
Open this to public comment.
Thank
And-
you. And, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I have two points. Firstly, and I may not know, attended the most recent, and as a pacifist, I'm expanding my horizons by attending coffee with a cop. But it's important to engage with the city department. So it was actually very productive. But one of the things that I learned that I was surprised, I had seen in I think the last HSH report that I read, I think was September, is that there's a certain, it's not reported out here, there's a certain small platter of shelter beds that are made available for police officers to make referrals specifically during those off hour on the weekends and overnight. But I think according to HSH's data, actually the utilization is something like 30%. They're not really utilized that much. And so I was engaging with a officer to find out why is that? Why aren't they utilized as much? Because as far as I can understand it, they can make, rather than the coordinated entry, which is reflective here, they can make direct referrals. Do you know anything? I don't want to over ask anything too granular, but do you know because I heard from that may be laid down soon, that it may not be operative that much longer. But do you know anything about the referrals that the specific portfolio of beds that are set aside
Yes.
for police officers and how those are utilized?
Yeah, great question. So I love these like nerdy detail things. I do know about this. These are at my program. So it is not a certain set aside number of beds. It is, so at the end of the day, around 4:00, we know at that point every morning there's a certain number of vacancies in the system, right? Guest placement, which is the team at HSH who works with HSOC, HOT, access points, all of the people that get beds every day, the hospital discharges, right? All of those partners they get allocated a certain number of beds. So it might be like, the hospital gets 3 beds at Embarcadero and 2 beds at Division Circle. And HSOC's going to get 4 beds at Bayview Navigation Center and 6 beds at another program. I can't think of it. And so all of that happens, every day, and it changes based on availability. At the end of the day, around a thing like 4:00, we sort of then know how many of those beds got utilized, how many are there still left. And usually there's a handful every day, right? That just didn't get fully used or whatever. Those then go to a couple of different so SCIRT gets a number of allocations, the Street Crisis Response Team, so that when they are out, they get a call about someone having a psychiatric emergency on the street, they can go out, engage with them. If that person, doesn't qualify for a 5150, then they can directly place them. They get a certain allocation to directly place them. Similarly, SFPD also gets a certain number, but it's a very low number of beds. I think it's typically around like 2 or 3 beds a night. I cannot tell you about utilization rates, but what I can do is I can get like this sort of like what I just kind of described to you, written up a little bit more formally, so you can understand the process. I can get that from our great partners over on the guest placement team. But that's roughly how it works. My understanding is that it's a very low number of beds. I don't think they get more than, like I said, 2 or 3, maybe 4, maybe 5, but I think that it's a small number.
And I think to the point that was just made by Member Ross, I think it's useful to think of it. I think of it as the very top of the pipeline. So if somebody's in, especially overnight, like once the list has closed, basically, or there's no more really admittances, if someone is in need of care or doesn't know how, I mean, technically, or you could flag down an officer and say that you were in need. Technically, you could, and whether or not, again, the standard of care, whether or not that's actually going to happen, they're actually going to transfer. I remember living in Augusta, Georgia, and being out on the street. And asking a police officer, and I would never forget as long as I live. He told me to find a comfortable corner outside. So if people are at the very top and they are vulnerable, and it is the gate, I think that pool of beds, especially from officers, since they're so visible, much more than SCIRT or other, I'm really intrigued in that part. So that's really, really helpful. And then the second part, the second point regards, just like last meeting, I pointed out the number. I think there were 4 total beds in the entire portfolio for transitional age youth. As someone in the community, we just had pride. We fill the floats, we do the thing, we have all the tchotchkes, and we do that. And there are literally in the city and county of San Francisco, it looks as though there are 3 beds in the city and county of San Francisco, specifically for the trans community. 3 at Taymon Blue.
Available.
Yeah. 3 available.
Well, it's actually full this morning.
Oh, well, there you go. So when I think of like equity, and I think of how we're trying to build out the portfolio, especially for queer and otherwise vulnerable communities, of which I'm a part, I think really thinking about like what the portfolio is, and that can also go back to what was shared earlier, where we know that the Supreme Court decision changed some of what's happening on the ground.
Right.
And if shelters have a particular cultural bent and people will refuse shelters, I want to put that in air quotes because of how that's been used. Part of what we can do is we can create spaces where people are trained, both in terms of harm reduction, both in terms of de-escalation, cultural competency. And one of the pieces of cultural competency is people that are specifically trained to deal with the kinds of challenges, need for safety and security, speaking, engagement, dialogue, things not to say. It's all the experiential background of working with specific communities that will help us to do better outreach to those communities. So just something that's on my mind. I know that we're working at like almost full capacities now that they're full, but I'm certainly hoping that we can open more sites that are specifically designated for those communities.
Subpopulation.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other
Thank you.
questions? May I add one more thing? Just some kudos on the topic of harm reduction. Britt had some really eloquent things to say. I do just want to really give some major kudos to the shelter staff across the board. One thing that just does not get talked about is just how many overdose reversals we have in our system. I get these reports every week, right, where somebody has died and been brought back through Narcan and CPR and all of the great training that other nonprofits have done for our shelter providers. I just really want to say that this is one area where I do think the shelter system has really shined. we don't really talk about it a whole lot because we're not seeing the number of deaths, right? We saw what happened in the SIP hotels. We saw what happened during COVID. And, that's not happening, especially in those congregate shelters.
Yeah.
And so I just want to just do a huge kudos to all of the shelter staff who have really taken these trainings seriously, and to all the programs who have really worked hard to make sure that we're saving these lives. Please.
Yeah.
Do you have like an estimated number?
I don't want to pull something out of the top of my head. Let me get
Right.
you a actual data point. I'll add it to my list.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. How about I'll get you, would it be good if I got you like a summary of the number of overdoses we reversed in 23-24 fiscal year?
That would be interesting.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll open it to public comment.
All right, there's one person on the phone, but we have somebody in the room who gets first dibs, so we'll go to the phones afterwards.
I feel like I'm stepping on their toes.
No, not at all. You can't, effort to go through security and get in here.
But it's perfect timing with the cultural competency thing. I look at gender apartheid through a global lens and a domestic lens. As we know, red states are like whack-a-mole. But coming from a red state means that you're going to bring that culture with you. A lot of the issues arise with coordinated entry not being culturally competent. I'm sorry, I know I'm speaking out of my, but word on the street. And this happens in every system. Every winter, people want to get shelter and they know what to say to get into a site that may not be of their representation. And having only one brick and mortar trans site, I think it is beyond crucial that coordinated entry is culturally competent enough to know how to screen. Now, that being said, I personally would like to see more conversational happening interagency. And that brings in BDPH in on the conversation, because nobody in, housing is certified to be able to either diagnose or say, yes, this person belongs here and this person is trying to work the system.
Thank you for your comment.
We have Aaron, I think. Just hand it.
We have,
Okay, so there's somebody on the phone. Aaron, I'm unmuting you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
On this topic, Glide hands out meth crack pipes. I've seen it, so I don't know how smart that is. Secondly, buy good insurance. You need insurance. Don't scrimp on the insurance, considering, in my view, the level of competency and recklessness of some of the shelter staff I've seen over here at the Bayview VTC. Specifically, though, I want to know, what are your occupancy numbers on the Bayview VTC? I see you got the safe navigation one there, but do you have the VTC numbers?
No. Aaron,
Yes or
the VTC is not covered specifically by shelter monitoring. I mean, your comments and insights are very relevant, but
you don't have
it's
oversight.
outside of the Shelter Monitoring Committee's official purview.
Okay. I've requested the Bayview Hunters Point Foundation that does this so-called casework, very bloated. They don't do anything, and they're getting paid so much money, like $80,000 a year, according to the grantee agreement documents. I've suggested to them that they bring Narcotics Anonymous, Alcohol Anonymous out here, because I know 75% of the population is on Fenty, crystal meth, or heroin, okay? And there's zero outreach. If it costs you more money in insurance, it's money well spent, just take off some of the bloated staff that's totally unnecessary between Urban Alchemy and so forth, Bayview Hunters Point Foundation, and they'll come out for free. You know, I think that one member there's talking about essentially efficiencies. Efficiency needs to happen because we're going to have less money in the future. Good. I think you have too much taxpayer money, and it's being sent to political favorites. Got to remember, Urban Alchemy is cheek to jowl with London Breed. And that's why they have no big contracts. And you have these people out here who can't get a guard card at Urban Alchemy, who are convicted murderers and so on and so forth. And they have no skills for social work. And they're not sensitive to us at all. We get treated like prisoners out here at the Bayview VTC, you know? And of course, they failed majorly on failing to implement ADA practices that now it's going to cost the city a lot of money potentially. So again, buy the good insurance. Don't scrimp on the insurance because the contractors, these so-called nonprofits, don't know what they're doing in many cases. So you need that insurance to cover you when you're, you know, pursuing this thing of that, you know, convicted murderers have a place in the homeless business industrial complex. And I tell you what, it's scary. And again, it's like back with the food. I want you guys to have them watching your back at 3 a.m, convicted murderers, and see how you just, you know, deal with it. If it's cool, adopt it. You know what I'm saying? That's another thing that we have to deal out here.
That's
Thank
unacceptable.
you, caller.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Sir, those are unacceptable allegations, in my opinion.
Well, the programs are set up to
Yeah,
support
But that's,
people coming onto the system. So it's,
Well, I just want to say, I would love for a convicted murderer to watch my back at 3 a.m. I just want to say that. That's all I have to say about that.
okay.
Yeah, I have friends who are convicted murderers also, and I'm very grateful for their friendship. And I think everybody's got a different path in life.
Yeah.
and I for one love the Meals on Wheels.
Okay, so any more comment from committee members? Why is my microphone? Okay,
And no other comments on the
Yep.
phone line.
okay. So we will move on to staff report. Review the inspections, complaints, and investigations.
So Marion is going to give the staff report this time.
Okay.
Let's see, share the staff report. I think we had 6 complaints, formal complaints. And it's one of the members of the public said last month, you know, that seems like, few. I mean, sometimes we have more, sometimes we have fewer. 6 is sort of somewhat in line with what we've had over the last few years. They seem to have been going up. But last month it was 4 and this month it was 6. And we're, with the 2 of us, we're able to handle more unofficially. Mary is able to solve a number of complaints, and I do too. When we get someone who has some basic issue, we're often able to resolve it. But in any event, this month you can, if you see our website, you can see the staff report with details about all 6 of these. But there were standard number 1 almost lost its spot to standard number 31 this month. Training. There were 7 allegations that implicated standard 1, which is treat all clients equally with respect and dignity. 3 for safety on standard 2. 3 for clean and supplied restrooms. 2 for ADA. 2 for clean bedding.
I'm just trying to hear the report. It's okay, Zane, no worries. I just
There were
maybe it was
2,
after.
for clean bedding. 1, sleep not possible because of noise at night. 3 for storage and 6 for training. And if you look at the running total for this fiscal year, there is a couple sites jump out as having more complaints than similarly sized sites. There are a few that have 1 complaint. Baldwin has 3. MSC South has 5, A Woman's Place has 3. And we do have, did you say, yeah, I think I mentioned Baldwin has 3. We do have seat 1 is still open.
Who was that who had 5?
MSC South, so that's somewhat concerning. If you
MSC
look at
South
last
is-
fiscal year, they had, I believe, 16. So this pattern, and there may be many reasons for it, but they do stand out there. The membership seat 1 is still open, but I believe the legislation, the changes to the administrative code that this committee requested about 2 years ago were put on the 30-day list, and it may be up now. So I looked yesterday at new legislation, and it wasn't posted yet as having been approved. But I think that once it's there for 30 days, unless there's some sort of objection, it gets approved. So we should have changes to the requirements for seat 1, and may be able to fill that now with someone who has experience with a family shelter, as opposed to actually being in a family shelter with a child now or in the recent past, which has been hard to find somebody who's able to devote time to the committee under those circumstances. And then also we asked for changes to a couple other things, including the frequency of inspections, which is a big deal. And that could mean that we're going to start visiting the navigation centers as part of our site inspection schedule. So we can maybe talk about that next month, along with checking to see about officers for the committee. And there may be it's possible one of the executive positions, secretary, vice chair, or chair, will change. That's up to members, of course. And I think that's it. We always list our coming meetings, but they're always the 3rd Wednesday, and December normally is skipped, but that has not been decided by members yet. So although I didn't list it there, it's conceivable we would have a meeting in December. And my parking meter is going to run out.
Hi, I'm Marian. I'm one of the admin staff for Shelter Monitoring Committee, and I wanted to propose bringing something into the subcommittee next month. I have noticed that I would like to see a uniformity in the way shelters respond to the complaints. I think it would make it cleaner and easier for clients to get resolutions. I'll see some shelters will address each individual allegation, is what we prefer. In that way, we can possibly come to a resolution from that point and won't trigger an investigation. Because obviously, if a certain allegation or a piece of that complaint isn't addressed, the client will then say, you know what, they're not taking the time to address this. I want an investigation. And it could be something that could be resolved if it was fully responded to. And I'll sometimes see some shelters will provide kind of like a paragraph summary of their response, where that again is not addressing each allegation in detail. And what we really want is to show the clients that they took the time to consider what they're saying, and kind of respond to it in the way that we write it. So if maybe at our subcommittee we can draft something.
Actually did draft one. I have a draft complaint form, and I think it was introduced like right when you started.
It still hasn't been introduced, CJ. I still haven't the email for it. I'm still waiting on that.
I thought it was in the draft complaint form was with the poster.
But I have it, which is why we don't have a partner. So,
Okay.
and just give it to me, or email it to me, please.
Yes, ma'am.
So maybe we could put that on the calendar.
Please. And Robert has did a copy of it, correct, Robert? The draft complaint form that,
Oh, yeah, we have some
Mocked
material.
up.
We shared it in our meetings, in the meeting material, but we can get that packaged up and talk about it next.
so for the next subcommittee meeting, I'll do all the members of the subcommittee. And then for our next full committee meeting, I will have not only that, but all the materials that I came up with for the standard of care poster and the box that we were planning on. I will, if you guys, admin, can you put me on the action items list, please? And just, I will, for the next full committee meeting, have financial specs and building specs for the poster, the blocks, and the draft complaint form. Thank you.
There's
Open
one
for public comment.
There's one something that in my experience, something that I'm just mindful of is if I think of the user map of how a complaint flows from a person in a bed at a site to an actual complaint.
I made a flow chart.
It's quite likely that that there is an engagement with case management at the very beginning of that flow. That's certainly the way that it operated a lot at our site. And a challenge there would be, and I'll be interested, like once we implement, first, it's just important to just get it out. But once we implement, what is the pathway whereby if case managers are sometimes adjudicating issues before they are grievances, then to some degree that will skew what's actually being reported out and what's not been reported out. So like, so I'd be interested in like thinking about also like how that part of grievances that are heard by, because I know ours all the time, some of the various things we've heard here, food, sometimes it's domestic issues, sometimes it's physical altercations, verbal altercations, etc. And then the way that that engages with staff. So part of something I'm thinking about is like this specific form and like how that map operates with case management, sometimes absorbing the grievances and those not necessarily being reported out, because I guess as to what the complaint form's for, it doesn't really require the committee itself.
Yeah, so I think what we're trying to do is have, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, CJ, is that we're trying to have grievances on our actual box or where we have our actual input for it that you want to go to shelter monitoring in a separate box in bold or like highlighting that it's separate from the actual shelter that it's at. I think that's what you're saying, right? So we're trying to make sure that we distinctively have grievances that are for the actual shelter and that are for the actual shelter monitoring committee, and that we highlight ours particularly so they know that we can bypass the actual bureaucracy that can happen in the actual shelter. So that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're getting to do. We're getting.
We clarified that like there's a difference between shelter grievances, site grievances, and standard of care complaints. And we handle standard of care complaints. And so that's what we're going to do is just create a separate pathway. And I made a flow chart that you will really enjoy, and I will email it to you
I love
as
good
well.
flow chart.
You can have it before our meeting and you can geek out on it.
And part of I will. And part of cultural competency, something I'm thinking about is to recognize that, and we would signage is something we talked about a lot on site of my site. It's going to require, like you're talking probably a 6 month to like year lead in.
No, it's not.
Well, I mean, for the population.
Yes.
That's living in
Yes,
to understand
to be able to
what
understand
the
what
actual,
the difference is,
how it's actually
the
used.
process.
I'm just saying that so that there isn't like the expectation that like you post the stuff, it's available, and then people start using it. It requires so much repetition to just keep, because everyday survival is top of the mind, not where is the box for. So I'm part of cultural competency is like the amount of onboarding that it requires before we will see, just so that there's also not the expectation in myself or others that we start seeing immediate like changes in the data because we've implemented. It takes a while for our population. So I'm just voicing that to remind myself.
No, thank you. That's, yes.
I think we should also remember that shelters have town hall meetings. All shelters have some kind of navigation centers, but the shelters have town hall meetings, and we should be attending those, and we should be able to get the information out every time we go to the shelter, have conversations. It's not about just looking for things, it's about engaging and getting the information out, and we should be attending those town hall meetings and bringing flyers and talking to people to get the information out.
Mhm.
So it doesn't take a year
Yeah.
to hit home.
Mhm. I'll go. Sign me up.
I wasn't even aware that we could do that.
We have gone, me and Robert have gone, can definitely invite everyone.
Sign Zaya.
Yeah, I could go. Okay. Can we open to public comment?
Yes. Public comment can be heard now. I see
We're over time.
Mr. Aaron. I will unmute you now.
Okay, thank you. I agree with that lady. I think you guys should come out here, but I'm not clear. Is Bayview VTC in your jurisdiction or
It
not?
is not.
It is not.
Who is? Who does cover us? No one?
I do not have the answer to that right
Okay.
now. Maybe our HSH representative?
Hi, I would contact the HSH program manager for the site, who is Angelica Varela, and I can give you her email address.
I have her. I know who she is. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so we don't have any oversight like this. We have her. She's the oversight?
The Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing, and she's the program manager for HSH, correct?
Okay, well, we need to be included, I think, into this more democratic, public, multi-dimensional sort of thing you've got here. Back to the survey, I would like to really, this is of the time I have. What we have now here, when the survey does get circulated, it is handed out and collected by the party involved in the survey. To me, this is totally ridiculous.
Yeah.
Surveys are mandated in the agreement as a condition of the provider continuing on. It's number one here, it's not being followed. They're not just handing out the surveys anymore. So we don't get a say whether we like them and whether we think they should continue on as provided in the grantee agreement. We have that right. It's been stomped over. Secondly, when they did hand out the surveys, they were handing them out and collecting them themselves. Is that democracy? When the Democratic Party, for example, says you can vote and then we're going to collect your vote and then we're going to handle it from there. No, it has to be a independent third party to rule out any possibility of corruption. Okay, because there's millions of dollars on the line here. So there is a motivation, I believe, for moral hazard there. Please consider that. Look at the grantee agreement. We do have rights here. The served population, they're not allowing us to exercise those because it might mean that they don't get any more business or money from the city taxpayer. Secondly, the laundromat option is really key.
You're out of time.
Out of time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. And we have an open seat. I would love.
Yeah,
if you-
Aaron, get up here.
Like, we
Okay.
have an open
Passionate. Seat one.
Please.
Look up the requirements, please.
Yes, please. And I'm pretty sure we will, look
Yes.
at those. We've been trying to fill it for a minute. You seem like you might need to be a part of this, and I would enjoy to have you sitting next to me.
Amen. That's what's up.
So anyone who's interested in filling out for seats, you can email the Shelter Monitoring Committee at .org. I'm sorry, .sf. Sorry, shelter.monitoring@sfgov.org. It's in our website as well.
Okay.
Thank
Please
you.
go look at that, Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron, we love you.
Okay. Okay, so we'll go to general public comment. Oh, okay.
Is there any more general public comments at this time?
Nope. Okay, I need a motion.
I think Azim might be.
Azim's got something.
Okay,
Azim's gonna talk about dysfunctional bodies.
Yeah,
Yeah, we love it.
man.
got 2 minutes.
After listening to the mayoral debate, I've been emailing a few folks, and when I'm bringing up issues of false deliverables, and I know I weaponize this term, but I always say bureaucratic nepotism when I'm trying to present that we're protecting agencies instead of being accountable. the retort is always asking for examples. And I feel like I'm being put in a position of auditing for politicians that just are not able to see the links in the chain, or, yeah.
Yeah.
And so at that point, to me, compliancy is the stumbling block. And it's being held up by metrics that are basic and just serve the agencies. And I would like to see, and there is, I mean, there's, you can get a PhD in the ethics of setting up metrics, you know, because the data that the politicians are going to look at has to actually represent, you know? And a lot of times, if the metrics aren't there, it's like erasure. It feels like you don't exist, you don't belong. You know what I mean? And so I'd like to see a little bit more agency around creating metrics that lean towards making politicians culturally competent.
That's a whole different. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And I just wanted to say that for Brit in Barcadero, they do their town hall the third Thursday of the month between 1 and 2. And for Marion, I put our email in the chat.
Thank you. We're stumbling.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Nice to work in Embarcadero. Okay, so
If there isn't any other, oh, wait. Oh, public comment, I would motion that we adjourn because I'm parked in a
Second.
very
I second.
crazy parking spot.
I second that.
Thank
favor?
you, everyone.
Thank
Oh,
you.
boy.
All in favor? Oh,
Bye.
Bye.
I
Meeting adjourned.
love you all. Have a great week and weekend.
Bye.
Talk
I'm
next
so
month.
glad we had quorum.
Yes, yes. You just did really good.
I have
Thank you, everyone.
Hi, Angie.
Two of them are gonna go banana bonkers.
Do you want